Hi, we're here with Julian. He's got a very interesting topic he decides to write about. The topic of the day, politics, with some of your titles. Tell everybody about your books and about your subject matter.
Well, I write about everything in U.S. political history from the 60s through today. So one book that I have, Our Nation at Risk, is looking at our election system. What's working, what's fragile, what's vulnerable, and trying to provide kind of thoughtful, smart answers about where we are as a democracy. I wrote also a book about Newt Gingrich in the 1980s, and it's about the origins of the modern Republican Party through him as really a key mover, and you can see kind of the line from him to Donald Trump in the end.
Yeah.
And so I try to provide a historical perspective.
You know, we're all, everybody is trying to hold on to the kind of fabric of what we believed America to be, and what our politics and our politicians and our statesmen. Yeah, we used to have guys like Goldwater, great statesmen, and you look at doing things that were for the betterment of the country. And now, does anybody think that's happening with politics anymore? No, everybody seems to be doing something whatever better for them or their interests.
Yeah.
So you're trying to put a spotlight on where things stand today?
Where things stand and how we got to where we are today, and really trying to trace the changes in American politics that happen. There's moments things change, and there's moments problems happen, and the more you understand the history, I think you're kind of in a better place today to hopefully start fixing things.
Yeah, I worked at CBS News, and I covered year after year. We'd cover the elections and the conventions, and you'd listen to what people were saying and how things were going, and you could read between the lines. You could hear things, and you go, oh my God, listen to how they're kind of positioning that and positioning this, and you realize, trying to weed through it and get to the real truth of things. Like I had just mentioned to someone, the Nixon years, and we look back and America got fat during the Nixon administration, and people say, no, why is that? Well, because he needed the vote from a lot of the farmers, and he had these commissions that were giving all these big grants to the farmers to grow grains and everything, and our whole diet changed under Nixon. And people go like, oh, Gregg, no. And I said, look it up. Look, that's when America got fat. But people don't see those kind of behind-the-scenes deals that are done.
Yeah, and I have this other book, Myth America, which actually takes some of the beliefs you hear all the time and tries to unpack them. Yeah. Not so much just behind the scenes, but kind of big arguments we have about why things have happened in this country. And I think that's part of what you do as a historian. You don't just puncture myths, but you try to get people to look more seriously and carefully about what actually happened.
Yeah. So for me, again, watching the news and seeing things the way they go, America was, in my estimation, America was robbed of one of the greatest moments and pride-giving moments that we could have had when Clinton was giving an address in front of the United Nations. The whole world loved us at the time. He had done great things in foreign diplomacy, and he was giving a speech that got this great round of applause at the United Nations, and it was scheduled to be on C-SPAN.
Yeah.
And I went to watch it when it was on C-SPAN, and they took it off so that Kenneth Starr could deliver all those trucks coming in with that stupid big book about Monica Lewinsky and something beautiful about America. We were robbed of it to have this piece of crap delivered, and I just like to say, oh my God, how bad? And I did like Clinton. I thought we did really well under Clinton, but boy, did they go after that guy. So you see that kind of thing in the books that you're writing.
Yeah, I wrote a book about Newt Gingrich, which really focuses on him, and he was at the heart of that impeachment.
Yeah.
And he reimagined American politics. He kind of practiced a kind of partisanship without guardrails. He abandoned older worries about civility and even governance. And he was also very media savvy, Gingrich. And he knew how to do what you just said, meaning shift attention away. And so I try to capture all that.
Yeah, the shifting attention away.
Yeah.
If we believe the information we're given to think, so when we see ourselves fed with certain things, you realize, oh no, that is making us look in a certain direction. There's so many instances of that, and I love talking to you about this. I could get deeper into it, but the politics of today, especially if you're a historian and you're looking back, and like I'd say to AI, sum up in 30 seconds in 3 paragraphs. How would you characterize the politics of today and the way things are being played back and forth?
You know, fragile, volatile, and unstable. And I think the election of 2024 is showing that. You know, I'm a historian. I always tell people, don't say unprecedented too much. But what we are seeing is truly remarkable. And I think underlying it is this fear that we are not on a solid foundation. And so everyone is watching with bated breath how this unfolds.
Yeah. When Trump came in and said they stole the election, it was stolen, and there was no real evidence of it. In fact, there was evidence that it wasn't stolen. But then, for me, a real change in American politics that was very upsetting to me was Bush Gore. And when the Supreme Court, when Scalia stepped in to stop the counting, because the last counties that were going to be counted would have taken the vote to Gore, that was a stolen election, but nobody really talks about that.
In this book on Our Nation at Risk, we have a lot on that question and how important that election was actually, and the outcome, and the way the vote was stopped. And I think people have forgotten about that. And the Supreme Court intervention there was quite dramatic, and many would argue without much foundation.
Well, when the Supreme Court and Scalia stepped in to say, no, we're going to stop this count now, when the count giving people, Americans who were voting legitimately, stopped their right to be heard, and those last counts and those last counties would have taken it into Gore. And Gore was, you know, he was dignified and he stepped aside. But I looked at that and said that was really upsetting. But no one talks about that these days.
Right.
You know?
I still play in my class. I play the clip of Gore going on television, and I think now for students to see that after January 6th is it's both inspiring and shocking that that's not what happened. Because I teach them how contentious this was and how angry people were. But there he is saying, "I accept the results."
You know something? Of all the authors that I've talked to, I think you're the guy to follow. With your books and the stuff that you're writing and exposing, I can't wait to read your stuff. So tell us the titles.
Our Nation at Risk is all about the election system. Burning Down the House is very relevant. It's about Newt Gingrich and the origins of modern American politics.
And you have David Byrne doing the soundtrack to that.
Yeah, right. And Myth America, which is essays on every issue from why Confederate monuments actually were put into place, to myths about race relations in America, to I have an essay on the Reagan Revolution and some of the things we misremember about that period.
Yeah. Julian, it's really a pleasure.
Great to meet you.
I'm looking forward to reading your stuff.
Thank you for
But this is definitely someone to follow. I mean, look at what you're telling everybody and making them aware of. This is the kind of stuff you need to read to be a good American, so that you're really educated and not just going with the mob mentality. So thank you very much for what you're doing. And standing in there doing this stuff, you don't ever feel threatened, do you?
No.
Good. So thank you.